ongoing series of virtual town hall meetings. Bill Dodd represents California District 3, and tonight's topic is wildfire preparedness and prevention. We're going to have a panel including a CAL Fire chief, the president of the Napa Community's Firewise Foundation, and an analyst from Permit Sonoma's Fire Prevention Division. We have emailed questions here that we're going to be getting to later on, and at 6:30 we'll open up for calls over the phone. Our phone line is 707-933-9133. And now I'll turn it over to Senator Bill Dodd.
Well, Rick, thank you very much. And I really appreciate all the efforts KSDY has had in all of our town halls. And thank you for being our host tonight. I want to thank our panelists and again, KSDY for convening this latest in a series of town halls. Tonight, we'll be talking, of course, about wildfires, what to expect this season, and how the state is responding, and what you can do to prepare. I'm very glad to be joined by this very distinguished group. And thanks to the hundreds of people tuning in tonight. The fact that you are here shows that there are lots of concerns. We will take your email questions and open phone lines for your calls at 6:30, as Rick mentioned. But the call-in number is 707-933-9133. And I'm sure Rick will be repeating that later in the program as well. But before we get into our main discussion tonight, just an update on the COVID-19 pandemic. More than 20% of Californians are now vaccinated and infections continue to decline. Please do your part to help our state reopen by getting vaccinated and observing public health guidelines. Wearing masks is going to be integral for that. I know we're all tired of them. It's a lot of fatigue, but now that we know that we can do other things once we're vaccinated, just wear your damn mask. That's really the thing. Until we're done with this thing, just wear our mask, because every time you don't and you go out there, what we do is we threaten our businesses right here in Sonoma, Napa, Solano, Yolo, and Contra Costa counties that I serve, and our business has just taken such a big hit. And so we don't want to go back up. Let's keep going down. You're doing a good job. Let's keep it up. Thanks. Well, now on to tonight's topic. Driven by climate change, devastating wildfires are all too common in California. Last year, we set a record with nearly 10,000 fires, destroying 4.2 million acres. 6 of the most destructive fires of all time happened last year alone. That includes the largest fire in California history, the August Complex fire, which claimed 1 million acres covering 7 counties around Mendocino National Forest. In our district, the LNU Lightning Complex fire, that same month, the number 5 all-time fire with 363 acres burned, destroyed, or 1,400 structures, and killed, sadly, 6 people. Each year, the fire season becomes longer and gets more destructive. And each year, we experience the tragic loss of lives and property. Costs for fire suppression alone have jumped from about $114 million in the year 2000 to $890 million in 2019. And those numbers don't even speak to the billions of dollars in property losses by private individuals. And emissions from wildfires are really reversing any gains we make on the climate front, and we know that's not good. Now with the state in the grips of a drought, we're all worried about how bad this year could actually be. CAL FIRE estimates suppression costs will jump to more than $1 billion. There are many factors in the increase of wildfires. Climate change is certainly one of them. But as we've seen, our utility companies have been responsible for many of these fires, including the 2018 Camp Fire, the most destructive in state history, killing 85 people. Clearly, these utilities must do a better job. Frankly, we're making them do a better job. In addition to better managing our utilities, we must better manage our forests. And I'm very proud and really, heartened, frankly, that Governor Newsom has really been on this task. And he's also, in conjunction with the legislature last week, approved a $536 million wildfire prevention package that will include building fire breaks and doing controlled burns in our wildlands. The investment adds to wildfire safety and prevention measures that I've been working on over the last 4 years. And we must each have a role to protect our families and communities. We must create defensible spaces around our homes, and we must be prepared to evacuate as fires approach. Here tonight, I'm really proud of this group tonight. We have 3 people that are going to be talking about each a different thing, but look, it's all connected. It's all connected to wildfires, wildfire prevention, to give their outlook on what's coming. Tonight, the state's top firefighter, CAL FIRE Chief Tom Porter, has been on the front lines of the state's worst blazes. He was appointed by Governor Newsom in 2019 and was the acting director of CAL FIRE under Governor Brown. And I first met Tom in 2015, practically on the lines of the fires in my assembly district at the time, up in Lake County. I consider him a friend. We have become, a lot of times, department heads and legislators don't really see each other that much, but because of the wildfires and his presence, and frankly, he has been everywhere. He's that kind of guy, a hands-on fire chief, Tom Porter. So we'll hear from him in a minute. Christopher Thompson is the president of Napa Community's Firewise Foundation. He's here. I'm going to just do a little editorial on Christopher. Just totally amazing. This is really not a big, or I don't even think it's a paid position. If it is nothing. And here's a guy that has really made it his business to know and understand this and lead this fire-wide councils throughout Napa County. We have these all people like him, hopefully just like him, in other counties throughout the area. And then also we have Caroleon Safford. She's an analyst for the Permit Sonoma Fire Prevention Division. Caroleon was on our virtual town hall panel last year. She is the recognized expert in Sonoma County, something of the likes of the best of the best, if you will. And that's really what I look at when I see this panel. So I hope that you agree with me at the end of this 1-hour session that we have tonight, that we indeed had the best information that you can spend your time with us on this Wednesday evening. It is a Wednesday evening, right? Or it's a Tuesday evening. See, life in the legislature, you don't even know what day it is. You just get up in the morning and go to Sacramento and come back. But nevertheless, let's hear from Chief Porter. Chief?
Well, thank you, Senator Dodd. And I am very appreciative of you inviting me to this. This is an important topic, and for you to be spending this time and focusing on this at this point in the year, which is perfect. We're turning the corner. You referenced all of the key concerns we have from coming out of last year and the last several years. And I truly do appreciate your friendship and partnership in working through these issues. You've been a leader here in this space and continue to be that. And we look forward to continuing to work on the issue going forward. And so I'm not going to go back and rehash the numbers because Senator Dodd covered them perfectly. What I do want you to understand that I am Tom Porter. I am I'm two things for the state. I am the top fire chief for the state under CAL FIRE. The responsibilities of that I'll cover a little bit, but I'm also the state forester. I'm a registered professional forester. My life's devotion has been to primarily forestry and prescribed fire and wildland management. And then I also, of course, do fire. And the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection is uniquely positioned to be in both of those spaces and is highly dependent on both of those parts of our mission in order to meet the needs, and clearly the needs that we're seeing throughout California now and the Western United States, and in many cases, the world. I grew up in Southern California in a small mountain town, Julian. It's much like Nevada City, Grass Valley area, but it's in one of the island forests down there. I grew up with a healthy respect for the environment and the forests that we all love, and then the wildland, the management of those wildlands. I came to the Department of Forestry and Fire Protection with a devotion to leaving the lands and landscape that I manage and have a piece in making decisions about in a better state than I found it. And for over the last 20 years of being with the department, I've seen a lot of good effort. I've seen a lot of accelerated climate change that has made some of that effort look like it's not what we needed to do, meaning not enough. And I truly believe that we need to do more. I believe that, as Senator Dodd mentioned, the Governor Newsom's budget and investments in this space in conjunction with State Senate and Assembly is making it possible for us to really start to turn the corner in ways that we never dreamed were going to be possible just a couple of years ago. So for those who don't know a lot about the Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, it is a department under the Natural Resources Agency. And so we have a secretary. Crowfoot is the Natural Resources Secretary, and he works directly under Governor Gavin Newsom. I report through him to the governor, as well as through his emergency services branch through the governor's office directly to the governor when we're having major incidents. The department is broken into 3 sections. I already mentioned the fire protection side. That's really the uniform. That's the airplane flying over my head, if you can see the picture on my background. That is the engines, bulldozers, hand crews, and all of the technology that we bring to the firefight, we'll say. There's the forestry side that deals with all of the private timber industry and timber harvesting in the state, and fuels management and forest health management throughout the state. And then we have the state fire marshal as well, which deals with all of the things that fire marshals do at the local level on behalf of the state: code enforcement, code development, training and standards for firefighters throughout the state. So all of that is under me, and it is a large undertaking for sure, but one that I'm very passionate about and see a great value in on behalf of the state. So CAL FIRE can't do this alone. We have a mutual aid response that is your local fire departments and state OES, CHP, the local sheriff. All of us come together when we have a big incident. And where that has been shown with great effect is particularly in the last several years. And our communications after the Tubbs fire, which you're very aware of, and all of the fires that happened during that siege has really become even more tight. We are at a place where the mutual aid of the state is world renowned. There is no other place on earth that does a coordinated response with all hands on deck kind of activities that are highly orchestrated and coordinated to make sure we have firefighter health and safety in mind, and put the public first in our efforts to protect lives, property, and then the environment as well. We will continue to do this. There's investments in technology that have been happening over the last several years. We have new helicopters coming online, one of which will be in your neck of the woods, Boggs Mountain. Our old Huey Vietnam era helicopter is being replaced this spring actually, with an S-70I Cal Fire Hawk. It's also a Black Hawk style helicopter for those that are familiar. And we'll be able to deliver 3 times the amount of water at a faster rate, and as well as carry more payload. Eventually, they will be capable of doing night flying operations once we build out that program a little bit more. And in conjunction with that, we are working to build out our C-130s that we received through the National Defense Authorization Act. And those C-130s will not be flying this year because we're still building them out. They need a retardant drop system that the U.S. Air Force is required to put into the ships before we can utilize them. And so that is all happening. Other investments are an increased number of firefighters, increased number of support staff in order to manage the behind the scenes efforts. And all of these things are helping us to better coordinate across the landscape of California and with our neighbors, the neighboring states as well. Another thing that we've been engaged in with the governor's Forest Management Task Force over the last 2 years is developing California's Wildfire and Forest Resilience Action Plan. There are over 100 actions in that plan that is available, by the way, through my website, www.fire.ca.gov, also on the Natural Resources Agency website. And we will be working in conjunction with Cal EPA, the Office of Emergency Services, Natural Resources Agency, and our federal partners to act on that plan, do more fuel reduction project work, and get the landscape in a better health state so it can be resilient to wildfire and reduce fire. It's an all of the above approach. We want to reduce the intensity of fire in the wildlands or the natural landscape, and then further reduce even as fire comes into communities, the intensity of fire. So then when it hits defensible space and hardened homes, no structures are lost. That is our hope for the future and where California needs to get to in the future. I would like to point listeners and viewers to a website, readyforwildfire.org. That is a website where you can really understand your piece in this all of the above approach. The state and the federal government is responsible for those larger wildland type of projects and the fuel breaks and around the communities. Then it is your responsibility to maintain your defensible space and work toward hardening your home against embercast. And that's something that we need to do in conjunction. It is every Californian's responsibility to be a part of the solution here. And I just wanted to touch briefly before passing the torch on the need for us to really understand the magnitude of the investment that the governor's budget is asking for in next fiscal year, but particularly for today. Today, Governor Gavin Newsom signed the early action plan for bringing over $500 million, 536, I think it was what Senator Dodd just mentioned, to get project work and get staff attached to this effort right now, this fiscal year. So between now and July, we will be acting on that $500+ million and really using it as a down payment on what we need to do for the next several decades to turn the tides of what has happened over the last 100 years in California. And that has been that we've allowed for the wildlands to become overgrown and not fire resilient. We need to get back to a fire resilient landscape like the Native Americans enjoyed for thousands of years before European settlers showed up. And so with all of that, just want a couple of things, and not to scare you, but to reflect on what climate change is doing. We have fires that are happening in mature forests that have not burned in the way we're seeing them. And we saw last year in Mendocino, in your neck of the woods, in Santa Cruz, in Butte County, where I was today, that were unfathomable even 2 years ago. And it is happening on a regular basis. This year, we're going into a very dry, drought-like conditions. And we expect that we're going to have conditions that will be very much like they have been the last few years. And it just happens to be that when the wrong fire starts in the right place on the wrong day, we are going to have catastrophic situations that we're going to have to deal with. And we're poised to do that, but it is something that every Californian needs to be aware that we are in fire country. Every acre in California can and will burn one day, and we need to be prepared for it and become resilient to it.
Thanks, Chief. Really appreciate those comments. Now that I recognize it is a Tuesday night, I think I can safely turn this over to Chris Thompson. Chris?
Thank you, Senator Dodd. Thank you for having me as a guest. And thank you, Chief Porter, for your comments as well. So I want everybody to know that, and just hearing what Chief Porter had to say, that those were scary words to hear. I moved to the Napa area in 2015, and I, like many people, having experienced wildland fires for the first time, decided that I needed to do something about it. And so I became a volunteer firefighter with the Deer Park Fire Station. And as we all know, the Deer Park area was ravaged by the glass fire last year. And then thinking that that was one tool in my arsenal, I wanted to go out and figure out how to do more fire prevention as opposed to fire suppression. And that's how I got introduced to the Firewise community. And I became the president of the board of the NCFF, which is the Napa Community's Firewise Foundation. We grew that organization to about 30,000 constituents in the Napa area. We have about 12 fire safe councils. We just successfully introduced a CWPP, which stands for a Community Wildfire Protection Plan. And we did so for the entire county. It's a roadmap. And the roadmap tells us where we need to apply our resources, how soon, what's going to cost to do that. And we included stakeholders from all over the county so that we had participation from people like Fish and Game, fire departments, resource conservation districts, municipalities. Everybody participated. Everybody gave their opinion on how to develop this roadmap. And that roadmap was just introduced and will be signed probably in this next week and put into place. We utilized what is called LIDAR, which is a range and light detecting system that will paint the topography of the ground and tell firefighters what is there in terms of fuel, what the combusted material is like, what the canopy, meaning the overstory of the tree, is, the understory. And it's one of the most detailed CWPPs that has been developed in California for a county. We then took that and we leveraged that and went to the Board of Supervisors, and we were successful in being able to raise $6.4 million for fuel mitigation, which starts tomorrow. We're pleased to say we have $1 million that we're spending in the remaining months of this fiscal year. And then we move on to about $5.4 million that starts in the next fiscal year, which is around the July-August period of time. And we are utilizing our map and going after the areas that all of the stakeholders deemed as being critical, such as fuel breaks, shaded fuel breaks, roadside mitigation of fuel. We're targeting communities that have not burned in my area, such as Angwin, which is a very beautiful community, 5,000 people, but has not had a large fire in many years. And a lot of people feel that it's the next paradise. So we're focusing on ingress for first responders, egress for evacuation. We're working on subdivisions. We are going to go into the Circle Oaks community and do a shaded fuel break around the Circle Oaks community. So we're putting this roadmap to work right away. We're putting the money to work right away. And so that's what the NCFF has been doing. But when we stand up a fire safe council and we work with communities, what we're doing is we are educating and are reaching out to these communities and having them hear about what ways that there are available to them to do the work necessary. I have often said in Deer Park, we had about at one time 600 residents, 600 homes. And that's obviously dwindled by quite a bit. We don't know exactly by how much because a lot of them burned in the glass fire. And I've often said that I would like to have those 600 homes all do defensible space more than just about anything else, because defensible space really works. And I can tell you, as a homeowner that lives in Deer Park, that had multiple homes all around me burned to the ground. And my home stood because we worked hard at doing the defensible space. And we reached out to our community, we reached out to our neighbors, and we worked as much as we could. But where we have areas where there are rental homes, where there are homes where the homeowner is not living in the area, this poses a problem. And that's where fire safe councils really come in handy, because you get to know your neighbor, you get to know who lives there, you get to know how to reach out to that person to get everybody involved in doing the necessary fuel mitigation work. That was very important. And then you reach out to our community leaders, such as the hospitals or businesses in the area, in my case, wineries, and start working with them, teaming up with them. I would advise people to not see home hardening and defensible space as something that is bigger than what you can handle, because it's very easy to do defensible space. Pay attention to your local requirements, but at the very least, prune trees away from your home. Put gutter guards on your gutters so they don't fill up with leaves. Don't let leaves accumulate in the valleys of your roof line. Don't have combustible material around at least the first 5 feet footprint of your home. We saw a lot of people using beauty bark and wood chips that they sprinkle around the footprint of the home. And when we get that ember cast and those embers land on those wood chips, that fire can do what is called a skunking fire, which it kind of goes underground and moves toward the house, and it's largely undetectable. So we want that material removed. We want that to be a hardscape. We want that to be gravel. We want that to be something that's not combustible. We want plants to be native species, not invasive species, and we want them to be fire resistant. There's really no such thing as a fire-proof plant, but there are fire-resistant plants, and that largely means taking conifers, taking plants away from the base of your home that have a lot of oil in it, such as rosemary, such as juniper, such as cypress trees. All these basically have a lot of fuel in them in terms of oil, and they torch and they can ignite the home if an ember lands on them. So clear away the trees, prune your trees up at least 6 feet. I go 10 feet in my yard. get those branches away from the ground. The reason we do that is because if a fire does start on the ground and it moves toward the tree, it's looking for some way to transition from the ground into the tree. We call that ladder fuel. And that ladder fuel introduces the fire into the canopy of the tree. Once it gets there, we call that a crown fire. Once we have a crown fire, we have embers. Once we have embers, we have ember casting. And once we have ember casting, we really have lost control of the fire. So doing your job in terms of that necessary pruning and fuel mitigation around your home is critical to the firefighters in your community. More home hardening ideas would be to do vents that are fireproof so embers can't enter into your attic or into your crawl space below your home. And then also taking things off of your porch or around your home that are flammable, especially when there's a red flag warning. The red flag warning is basically saying we have the conditions are ripe right now for something very bad to happen. And so start to prepare for responding to that, not reacting to that. And your response is to take flammable materials off of your porch and to do things that allow you to escape quickly if you are told to evacuate, such as point your car away from the home, fill up your tanks, get your grab bag ready, do the things necessary to get out of the way, and not just out of the way of an impending fire, but also out of the way of first responders that are now coming into your community to try and help the community out. So those are my recommendations for defensible space and home hardening. And then the other thing is, because I don't know where exactly this is all being broadcast, but get involved with a local fire safe council. And if there isn't one, start one. This is a great tool. Mind you, I came to the area. I was not a firefighter. I was not on any board. We now have $6.4 million. It can be done. It can be done by a layperson. You can start to work with the people in your area to harden the area. Senator Dodd's leadership in this area has been very helpful. Porter through subordinates to under his position that I work with in the county fire chief, the fire marshal's office. We realize that we are at an existential crossroads and we're taking the necessary steps to move the community into a safer posture. And I'm very proud of everybody who's participated in this.
Well done, Christopher. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you being here. Next up, Caroleon Safford. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Senator Dodd, and thank you for the invitation. I'm truly honored. My name is Caroleon. I'm a department analyst for the County of Sonoma Fire Prevention Division of Permit Sonoma. I've been working in wildland fire issues for many years as an educator and a firefighter. Like Christopher, I came from the Volunteer Fire Service at Fort Ross Fire and moved on to the Countywide Fire Safe Council, Fire Safe Sonoma, and from there to working with Permit Sonoma. I'm now in the exciting position of rolling out the Wildfire Adapted Sonoma County projects, which will provide assessments and incentive for vegetation management and structure hardening in selected areas throughout Sonoma County. I'm also working on an update of the Sonoma County Community Wildfire Protection Plan. So I'm a bit busy, but really happy to be involved in these super important projects. You know, it's been a rough couple of years for all of us in this part of the state. First, I'd like to acknowledge our community's losses and the strength of all of you who are picking up the pieces and doing the hard work to move on from here. And here's sort of what I would ask for if I had a magic wand. Number one, every home in every neighborhood would have good, well-maintained, defensible space. It's important. Number two, just as important, every home would be hardened to resist the heat and ember ignition of wildfire. This is equally important to defensible space. Again, maintaining both hardened structures and good defensible space is critical. Neither in and of itself is enough, but together they represent the most beneficial things that can be done to reduce risk of home ignition. And it's something that you, the property owner, can do. It gives us some control back over what's happening in our environment. So what is this structure hardening thing anyway? 80% of home loss in wildland fires is from embers. Little things the size of a pea to the size of a grapefruit that are flying around during the fire. Embers ignite homes in many, many ways. They can land on and ignite near structure plants or items. Good rule of thumb to keep in mind, if the leaves are piled up there right now, chances are the embers are going to pile up there too in the wildland fire. So keep that area clean and really work to get that 5-foot non-combustible zone that Christopher was talking about. Embers can also blow into structures through vents or other openings. So you need to retrofit your vent openings either with a wildland urban interface compliant product, or at the very least, just cover them with a minimum 1/8-inch mesh. Embers can also ignite vulnerable items, other structural elements like non-Class A roofs, decks, siding. These can be more expensive to retrofit for sure, but it can be done. And there's some low-cost DIY solutions that can help. I'll post some links in the chat when I'm done that will talk about some of those things that you can do to circle up those problems as best as you can. Critically, though, embers can also ignite on the items that we leave near our homes. These small items can ignite, slowly build to expose the house to heat and flame. I can't emphasize this enough. The stuff we let pile up around the house is a critical component of home ignition, and we tend to not see it. I notice when I'm doing assessments, people see trees, people see bushes, people do not see their stuff and the potential for that to ignite due to the embers of a wildland fire. Most of these vulnerabilities can be solved by creating the 0 to 5-foot non-combustible zone, which goes from structure walls out for 5 feet. It's huge. This is a huge thing you can do to increase your your wildfire safety. It's a giant step. In that area, no combustible items, keep your plants low, well-maintained, irrigates. Try to put in hard surfaces, gravel, rock, cement within that 5-foot zone. So there's nothing in there that will combust when the embers blow up against the structure. I'm telling you, if you don't do anything else, start working on that and chip away at it as best as you can, but start tonight when you get off this call. Hot off the presses, there's a great new publication out from the Living with Fire program at the University of Nevada, Reno, called the Wildfire Home Retrofit Guide, which I will post the link for. That's a great place to learn about structure hardening and what you can do. So I'll post that link and a bunch of other links into the chat. As to defensible space, I gotta say, I'm not gonna go into all the details of how you do good defensible space, but the one most important tip that I have is the vegetation that's the biggest risk to your home is the vegetation that's closest to your home. So start at the house and work out to create that 100 feet of defensible space. Get your 0 to 5-foot area done. Get that 30-foot lean, clean, and green zone done, and then start working on the wildland fuels reduction in the 30 to 100-foot zone. So I can't recommend that highly enough. To wrap up, get that near home vegetation. Start at the house and work out. Act to reduce your structural vulnerabilities by learning what to do and how to do it. And while you're doing that, do actively prepare yourselves, your families, and your animal companions for any emergency, from fire to earthquake to whatever else nature's going to bring us this year.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Caroleon. We have our first caller here, and if you'd like to join us, our phone lines are open at 707-933-9133 on our virtual town hall with Senator Bill Dodd, our analyst from Permit Sonoma, Caroleon Safford, president of the Napa Community's Firewise Foundation, Christopher Thompson, and CAL FIRE Chief Porter. Question from John in Petaluma. Caroleon, he's asking about building materials for fire safety.
Hi, yes. I just wanted to ask, because I've seen a lot of videos on fires where the embers are moving in front of the fires by a mile or two, and when a lot of embers land on an asphalt shingle roof, the next thing you know, the house is on fire and the roof is on fire. And I just wanted you to address people maybe spending a little extra money on getting either slate, Spanish tile, or a metal roof, and how much that could possibly save their house from burning down, along with defensible space things done correctly. Thank you.
The thing about your roof is what you need is a Class A roof. By covering and assembly is what we call it. And I just posted these links in the chat. And if you go to that Wildfire Home Retrofit guide and take a look at that, it'll explain more about what we're saying there. Any Class A roof will withstand the embers of a wildfire. What you really want to watch for on a roof is a roof that's old or out of date and thus has lost its Class A rating. Roofs that have places where embers can blow in and get underneath the roof tiles. Barrel vaulted roof, that Spanish tile, can actually be very, very vulnerable if at the edge of the roof there are openings that the birds can get in and make nests, and then the embers can blow in there. So asphalt shingle is actually a perfectly adequate Class A. Asphalt shingle is a perfectly adequate roofing material, so long as it's maintained and within its sell-by date. One of the other things to look for on the roofs is where the leaves are piling up. Make sure that you don't have leaves piling up, especially in areas if they're piling up where you have a roof, a pile of leaves with a vertical member like a dormer window, because then you're causing exposure to the siding even more than to the roof. So roofs are the most important element of structural retrofit. If you had a wood roof, that would be your first and only priority. But asphalt shingle is a fine material.
Excellent. Question emailed earlier for Chief Porter. A question from Caroline Perry and also Carolyn Jackson of Lake Berryessa, who has firsthand knowledge this past season about does CAL FIRE believe they have sufficient aerial firefighting assets for the next season? If you could talk a little more about 24/7 firefighting from the air rather than just in the daytime, and then about the systems in place for evacuations.
Sure, and great questions. And the aerial question is a common one, but specific to the fires that we had in 2020, we were stretched. I have to say, we probably could have, if there were more available, added more aircraft to the firefight. But we had well over 100 aircraft in the state that we were flying on fires nearly continuously, all of the latter part of August and into September and even October. So oftentimes it is forgotten that firefighting aircraft are utilized to slow the spread of fire. Aircraft don't put fires out. Boots on the ground put fires out. And so adding more aircraft without the sufficient resources on the ground to make a ground attack and put the fire out don't really actually help in the long run. Sometimes they'll slow the fire. Sometimes we'll use particularly retardant, the red stuff coming from the S2 behind my head, for a longer term, a slowing of the fire. It could put a fire to a creep for a period of time. Water will evaporate very quickly and only for sometimes minutes or less slow a fire. So we utilize all of those types of resources to get boots on the ground to those areas where they can make headway on controlling fires. Now, nighttime operations. Nighttime operations for the foreseeable future will never be as robust as what we see during the daytime. There are fewer resources that are capable of that type of mission, but there also is a need to let fire, in some cases, burn during the night in order to get to places that we can control them, roads, ridge lines, and those kind of things. There's a lot of tactical kind of nuance to the question you're asking. So I have seen firsthand in San Diego during the Cocos fire that happened there in 2014, where night flying aircraft held fire mid-slope for all night long, just putting water on it, keeping it moving slowly. We never got the boots on the ground to cut that fire off. And mid-afternoon the following day, that fire came off of the mid-slope and burned down canyon into a community and took out many, many homes. So it's a tactical kind of balancing act. And while we're going to beef our capabilities to fly and do these operations at night, it's not a panacea. It needs to be used appropriately and surgically to closely coordinate with forces on the ground that can utilize that cooling of the fire front to make a stand with the boots on the ground that are there. And we are building that capability with all of our new S-70I aircraft. Again, this is only for helicopters. There is not a sufficient safe means of utilizing air tankers, fixed wing air tankers at night yet. I would imagine over the next decade or so, we'll see technology that might change that. But for right now, we're just talking about helicopter operations at night.
Thank you, Chief. Question now from Rich of Napa. Hello, Rich. Welcome to our town hall with Senator Bill Dodd and our panel about fire preparedness and prevention.
Thank you very much for having me. And I'd like to thank Senator Dodd for hosting this town hall and all the panelists. And my question, relatively simple, and I guess the chief will need to look into his crystal ball. But with the amount of fires we had off Silverado Trail and Highway 29, and having been there firsthand and seeing the fires firsthand, are any of those areas a little more safe this year from being burned because of the amount of devastation and the amount of fires that took place? And I just wanted to say thank you for the firefighters. Having seen them work firsthand, it blew me away how amazing they are. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your question and for your acknowledgement of the hard work that goes into this effort by all firefighters and emergency responders alike. And I'll say, just to cap the last question as well as I answer this question, evacuation is something that we're working very diligently with our law enforcement agencies in getting people early warning and the capabilities of being able to get out before fire hits. We do have technology that is helping with that and growing fires in a virtual setting immediately once we get a start that we know of on the map, and building a plan to evacuate. So continuing with the question related to fires reburning in areas that have burned before. What I'll say is it's still a prone landscape. We have a lot of annual grasses that have come up with enough rain this past winter to be able to be flammable as they dry out now and into the spring and summer. So there, like I said before, every acre in California can and will burn someday, and some of those grass-covered landscapes will burn again more frequently, unfortunately, because of that grass-covered landscape. What it does do, though, is the heavier fuels, a lot of those have been burned out. So the intensity is reduced, and aircraft is more effective in slowing fires much more in that kind of a vegetation than it is in heavy brush or timber.
Great. Christopher Thompson, president of Napa Community's Firewise Foundation. A question now from Mike Green of Napa about fire breaks.
Hello, this is Mike Green. I live on Lower Atlas Peak, and in the 2017 fire, a lot of the flames. I watched them come down the mountain. Any chance that a fire break can be designed and built slightly above the first bench on Atlas Peak, which is very flat valleys, to stop the fire from coming down into Silverado and in the lower end of Atlas Peak, where we lost 30 to 40 big homes?
Mike,
good question. Is that for me?
Go ahead, Chris.
To address that specifically to the Napa area, I would say that when we released the CWPP, we also released a 5-year look ahead. That was a look ahead that was heavily vetted by the Napa County Fire Department and in conjunction with CAL FIRE. And in the that 5-year look ahead, which is on the website of the NCFF, it shows the work that we have planned for that area that you speak of in the Atlas Peak area, because we do have a lot of fire breaks planned. And while we only are funded through the first year of that 5-year plan, we feel pretty confident that we're going to get the necessary funds to move past that first year. And we will be addressing that area in the Atlas Peak. And you can see it, if you look at the 5-year plan, you can see it's articulated in that what we're doing to the Atlas Peak area.
Excellent. Thank you, Christopher. Question now from Robert Lawrence in Circle Oaks for our panel. Robert?
I'm Robert Lawrence. Thank you all very much for being firefighters. I admire you. I'm a disabled vet. I know where you have to do, and I really appreciate the work. Question I have, is it feasible for those wildfire subdivisions or those regional subdivisions or areas that have water tanks available on their structures or properties to use those water tanks and that water to put sprinklers on all the buildings and provide a micro wetness, I suppose, to help ameliorate and slow down the process? Sprinklers, water, houses.
Well, thank you for the question, and I'll address it briefly. I don't know, Carleone, if you want to touch this one from the hardening of structures kind of capacity, maybe ponder after what I say. There are, if it's a gravity fed system, that can be something that could be added to your defense. What we find truly is that the defensible space and all that Carleone and Christopher mentioned previously about the defensible space, best practices and hardening of your structure, those are the most important things to do ahead of utilizing some sort of a water source. So I wouldn't want somebody to think that they could just do the water and they're good to go. Carleone? I
would completely agree. And, water is going to be a scarce commodity come fire season this year. I know in my neighborhood, I am sweating how much water I'm going to have myself, let alone all my neighbors who have less reliable water sources. So water is going to be a really, really scarce commodity. And the thing about applying water before the fire is that you're using up water and you have no idea when the fire is going to hit there. So it could be that you'll empty all of those tanks out. The fire doesn't hit for 3 days, and now there's no water left in the tanks for the firefighters who show up on scene to fight that fire. And generally, a fire is hot enough that it's going to evaporate that water before it has a chance to really help. I think an argument can be made for giving the vegetation right near the structure a little bit of water if you have plenty of water before you evacuate. But to set up sprinklers and leave them running and emptying out your tank is a very negative prospect from a firefighter standpoint. It's probably not going to help much on your house either. And don't forget the other thing about sprinklers. You set up sprinklers, you're fighting the wind, right? Because the wind's going to be blowing. It's going to be blowing that water probably away from the actual parts of the structure that you want to defend. So getting behind those, really, really getting after your structure hardening, your 0 to 5 foot zone and your defensible space is probably your best bet. and really educate yourself about the best you can do in that regard.
And I concur in what was just said, and I would just add to that. We had a member of one of our fire safe councils put a very elaborate sprinkler system in, and the house burned to the ground. And it's like standing in front of a blowtorch with a garden hose with that north wind. And as Carleon said, timing is everything. And if it's poorly timed, then you've exhausted all your water resources, as she also described by the firefighters. So I think, again, to emphasize defensible space, that's where the emphasis needs to be, and home hardening.
Question now, emailed question, several actually. David Sabin of Sabina Vineyards, Rich Richardson of Turley Wine Cellars in St. Helena, and David Ogden from Mill Valley. David shares a story about how after the glass fire, his insurance was canceled. And so, and he had to struggle to find a replacement carrier. So his question, and the questions of the other two as well, are about operating businesses in this new kind of fire every year climate, and what's being done to address this, just the serious cost of doing business, particularly when it comes to insurance.
You know, I think I'll take this one. I sit on the insurance committee that was put on there after the 2017 fire, and I think it was very prophetic. Our President Pro Tem Tony Atkins, really thought this was going to be an issue of our times, and frankly, it has been. We have had cancellations or non-renewals, more than likely, all throughout my district in the fire areas. Now, even in the wine business, there's cancellations and not even wanting to write business. This is all throughout the state, but even in non-wildfire areas. So there's really been an analysis lately by the insurance company, a risk analysis that is, very troubling. We're working with the insurance commissioner. I had a focus group with Farm Bureau and other wine industry groups and the insurance commissioner just last week, and a bunch of insurance brokers from the state to talk over these issues. The issues are really widespread. Okay, what are we going to do if an insurer does not want to carry insurance? The government, frankly, cannot make them. We have an insurance of last resort. It's called the FAIR Plan. Normally, the FAIR Plan is for homes, but it has been used for wineries as well. And just recently, the FAIR Plan has stopped writing that business. We just passed a bill, I think it was SB 11, that just passed the Senate committee, and it'll be going to the Senate floor soon. It's really important that that the insurance commissioner act on this. The FAIR Plan act on this and really enact the rates necessary. My biggest concern, of course, is that can we do this fast enough to make sure that people are covered when these risks occur? And so, for David Sabin, three times your normal premium, that is huge. And I get it. I'm sorry about that. But we've got some people that are 10 or 20 times their normal, rate. So this is a big problem. We've got lots of questions. We've got irons in the fire, but no real solutions right now. I don't know if anybody else has any input, but I wish I had better news on that front. But we're continuing to work with the industry and brokers and the FAIR Plan as well.
Back to the callers now. We have Phil from Napa with a question about fuels and how to best prepare. And just so everyone knows, we're extending till 7:15. I appreciate everyone staying on for another 15 minutes because it's a very important topic, and a lot of people have a lot of interest in it, and they want to communicate with you about that. So, Bill?
A fire chief told me some years back that an area that's not burned in Napa yet is the southwest side of the valley from Dry Creek up to Mount Beater. Mount Beater had some fire, of course, a couple of years ago, but there's a whole really thick forest from that area that I just described. And I don't know anybody is trying to thin anything because it's really steep. And I don't know that people are putting that on their radar as an area that's very ripe for a fire.
I'll just add to that is in the 5-year plan that was issued by the NCFF, and we recognize the Dry Creek Mount Reader area being critical for attention. So I would like everybody listening to go to the NCFF website and look at our 5-year plan and look at the CWPP. It's a very useful tool, and we are hyper aware of these areas. We've worked with a lot of agencies. What we're going to turn, at some point, we're going to turn to the community, and we're going to have to figure out how to create a consistent revenue source. We're good through the first year of our 5-year plan, but in order to get the other 4 years done, we're going to rely on some creative methodologies for creating the funds needed. And you'll see that once those funds come to fruition, we have a way of putting them to work, and you'll see that area that you speak of is in that 5-year plan.
I wanted to add, if Chief Neck is on too, who is the Vegetation Management Program Manager for Sonoma Lake Napa unit for CAL FIRE. And so I'm going to give you the mic, but I wanted to also let everybody know that with the action today by the governor, there are massive amounts of money available for landscape level treatment as well as fire prevention in and around communities through grants. The grant application period is open currently. We'll be closing in the first round of concepts on May 19th. So right now is the time to apply for those additional funds that might be needed to expend on those type of projects. Chief?
Could I interject real quick, because just so we, the NCFF, had a long conversation with Chief Tom Connect, who's the battalion chief in charge of pre-fire prevention. And we've gone through our plan to roll out several $1 million worth of grant applications for the fire prevention grants. And with his blessing, we are moving very rapidly to getting that submitted, and it will address just as you speak. And the reason I bring this up is because we are trying to keep this all under one umbrella, the NCFF, as opposed to having everybody out there doing their own thing. Because as you well know, Chief Porter, we want this to be an overarching strategy and not piecemeal. So we are moving in that direction, thanks to what CAL FIRE is doing for us.
And can I add one brief thought too on this? Is I think I am so excited about what you guys did in Napa with your CWPP and move into funding. That's awesome. Large scale fuel breaks are important. We need them for forest health. We need them to stop fire, but your best bang for the buck, if what you're after is not having your house burned down, your best bang for the buck is with your 100-foot defensible space zone and your structure hardening. Just don't forget in the thoughts that we're having about doing these large scale fuel breaks, we all still need to double down on our defensible space and structure hardening.
Right. And to emphasize that point, we all think of defensible space as a methodology of protecting our homes from the wildland, but you have to also look at it. We're also protecting the wildland from your homes, given the fact that 80% of fires start in and around the home. It can transition to a veg fire very quickly. So we are, that defensible space will help us, as you point out, contain these large wildland fires.
Excellent. One last call now. Stuart from Sonoma, you're on our town hall with Senator Bill Dodd and our panel about fire prevention and preparedness.
Yes, Senator Dodd, I'm in Sonoma, and thank you for having this. My question in Sonoma is, what can you do to start having fire egress limit high-density building? Right now, Sonoma is doing build-outs and possibly annexing land that could create some of the same problems with traffic that Paradise, California did. What can you do about it?
Well, most of these issues are local issues. So your county board of supervisors, if it's in the unincorporated area, would be a good first start. Your city council, if it's in the city limits, let me tell you, there is a big development plan for Lake County, a huge development that the Attorney General of the state of California got in the middle of with a lawsuit because he was concerned about the wildfire risk there. But these are things that, one of the things I hate to do is, put it on another agency. I don't really know much the state is going to do about that specific thing. But one thing I can tell you is we are working seamlessly with our fire safe councils and organizations, our cities, our counties, along with the state and all our agencies. So it's not passing the buck. It's just we do have roles that we have to do. And Rick, before we get to the next call, thank you, caller. I think Chief Porter wanted to have Tom Necht on for something. Chief?
Yeah, thank you, Senator. Just to cap on what CAL FIRE is doing in that the vegetation management treatment side of things. And I think Christopher covered a lot of it, but since I called you out, Chief, please just quickly cap on what's happening in that particular area.
Certainly. Good evening, everyone. Tom Connect, I'm the Pre-Fire Division Chief for the Sonoma Lake Napa unit. And the origin of my introduction was to talk about what's going on in the Dry Creek, Mount Veeder area. And I can just say that CAL FIRE and Napa Communities Firewise have been working hand in hand over the last year developing their community wildfire protection plan. It is exactly in line with the unit strategic plan priorities. And that whole plan is, as Christopher said, is close to being complete and will inform the rest of the plan going forward for the next 5 years and the next, in perpetuity in my hopes. That Dry Creek Mount Veeder area has been identified as an area of concern because it has a relatively small fire history with a lot of people that live there. So, yep, we're on the same page there, Chief.
Thank you, Tom. One other thing that's important to note for my constituents on the other side of the valley in Sonoma, since a lot of these fires come from the east to the west, that should be good news for all of you. And I'm sure that over on the other side of the valley, there's also some Firewise groups that are working in concert doing similar type of things.
Senator Dodd, it's interesting. We're set an hour and 9 minutes into our virtual town hall, and PG&E hasn't come up yet. So one of a few individuals had emailed questions before about PG&E's ability to be flexible, and they've acknowledged responsibility in a few of these areas. And how do you feel that relationship is, and what should people know about where the state and PG&E are working together on this issue?
Let me tell you, I think the governor really has set some really audacious parameters for the investor-owned utilities, not only PG&E, but all the investor-owned utilities, in California. And PG&E is clearly the worst actor of all of them. It's not my job to be their PR person. I would say that, a recent fire has been shown, the last investigation to, have the Kincaid fire believed to have their fingerprints on it. That's really, too bad. They're going to have to face that music. I believe the financial backstops, for that are in place with their insurance and AB 1054, which was the state bill that we put together a couple of years to make sure that victims get covered and that the utilities don't go bankrupt. All I will say is they've got a new CEO, a lot of new management. They've cleaned house. the governor made them restructure their board of directors. So they had, really some credibility in the boardroom and accountability in the boardroom and the executive suite that he demanded. But for me, the proof is in the pudding. They've got to do the job. They've got to maintain their wires and the vegetation below. Chief, you might want to opine, but that's about as far as I can go.
Yeah, and I'll be quick. I'm on conference calls along with several of my staff related to all of the IOUs. PG&E, of course. We do have one-offs with each of the utilities. We included in that is Cal OES and CPUC in particular, but there are others as well. And we're monitoring their efforts in hardening their infrastructure and then also their vegetation management treatments. And there is a long way to go. And with both of those activities, it is a constant effort that they need to make to continually upgrade and continually maintain their line spacing from the vegetation and from the understory vegetation that's underneath those lines. And we're working with them. They're getting better, but they have a long way to go. Just know that we are watching very carefully and in meetings with them every single month, and sometimes more than that during this time of year.
Just one other point on that, Chief and Rick. I had an opportunity to go to Southern California on a tour of California to learn more about what's going on in the state. And we went down and actually watched. There was a number of legislators, environmentalists, business people, et cetera, that were interested in what kind of technology these utilities are using. They have these new covered conductor lines. So when they drop on the ground, they don't spark, they don't arc, they don't start fires. My only wish is that PG&E was as far along technologically as Southern California Edison. It was pretty darn impressive, and they continue to do more and more. And I think PG&E's on the right track. Southern California Edison is just further along to segment their line. So when power is off, it's not off necessarily everywhere. They can segment it instead of 35 counties going down all at once, which we all know is no bueno.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much to our panelists, CAL FIRE Chief Tom Porter, President of the Napa Communities Firewise Foundation, Christopher Thompson, and analyst from Permit Sonoma's Fire Prevention Division, Caroleon Safford. Any last words, Senator Dodd?
Yeah, Rick, just again to KSVY, our host tonight, and you, thank you very much for helping us out. And also our panel, this is, a Tuesday night. We do know that. And here we are at 7:15, and they could be with their families or friends, any number of different places, and they're with us. And I'm thinking that we probably could have had this call go till 8 and have more and more questions. So to our viewing audience, thank you very much. We're going to continue to do these type of forums. But for that, good night, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Thanks very much, Senator Dodd. I'm Rick Love for Sonoma TV, SVTV 27, and KSVY 91.3. Thank you very much to our panelists and to Senator Dodd for participating in our virtual town hall about wildfire preparedness and prevention. Thanks very much, everybody. Good night.